I hope in coming years, trans person, queer persons can be a part of Lok Sabha.
I don't think in the next decade, even if they win, anything is going to happen.
A lot of progress has happened during this tenure, but they mistake it for all the work that's coming from the grassroots organizations, from activists.
The need of the hour is horizontal and interlocking reservations for transgender persons.
How has 10 years of BJP rule been for the LGBTQIA+ community? The last decade saw the Supreme Court of India pass two landmark judgments. The Nalsa judgment in 2014 that gave us right to self-identification of our gender, and the 2018 judgment in the Navtej Johar versus Union of India case that decriminalized consensual same-sex relationships.
I think the last 10 years with the union government, at least the Modi government, has really impacted the queer lives or the LGBTQIA lives in a very minimal or rather hardly much in so many ways.
These judgments also gave several important directions, including to provide reservation for the transgender community and to sensitize the government officials, particularly police personnel, about the LGBTQIA+ spectrum. After the significant decade, the 2024 Lok Sabha elections is considered especially crucial for the LGBTQIA+ community. And I will tell you why. Because there is little to no change in how the police or the state machinery addresses or deals the issues of the community. Even during the marriage equality case, the community received hardly any support, even from political parties that claimed to be their allies. It was not surprising that the BJP-led union government called the idea of same-sex marriage an urban elitist concept.
But the Rajasthan government, where the Congress was in power back in 2023, also opposed the petitions.
And several other political parties simply refused to make any comments about the case. But now that the elections are here, the political parties are making poll promises to the community.
When we look at the elections today, it's very important for the queer community to make the right choice towards the right government that wants to choose and protect them.
We will go into what the manifestos say and the demands of the community members. But before that, I would like to remind you that it is your support that fuels my journalism. I am Azifa Fatima and I cover caste, gender and law, among other things, in the News Minute. I have been consistently bringing you stories of the LGBTQIA+ community, digging beyond the surface level and reporting in depth on the health, legal and human rights aspects concerning the community. None of this would have been possible without your support. So do continue supporting me by becoming a paid subscriber of the News Minute. Now back to the manifestos. The BJP in its manifesto has just 2 sentences, or to be exact, just 47 words of promise to trans community. And it makes no other mention of any community that falls under the LGBTQIA+ spectrum. The one vague promise of BJP is that it would expand the network of Garima Grahas to cater to the needs of trans persons. The Garima Graha is a shelter project that was started in 2021. But here is a catch.
Over the last 5 years, the Department of Social Justice and Empowerment of Government of India has opened over 10 Garima Grihas or shelter home for queer trans persons across different states in India. It has failed to open at least one such shelter home in every state of our country, let alone opening one in every district, which is the need of the hour. In addition to a severe shortage of such safe spaces, we've also seen that several of these existing shelter homes were severely underfunded for more than a year, forcing some of them to the brink of closure. We have received reports that in some cases, the operators of these shelter homes had to pull out personal loans, putting their own savings at risk in order to continue sustaining these shelter homes. Otherwise, people and residents who were living there would have been out on the streets again, back into the violent environments that they tried to escape from. This time in the election manifesto, the BJP government has promised that it's going to open more shelter homes across the country. But what is the guarantee that even if they do open these shelter homes, that they will have a sustainable financial model which will never again force people operating these shelter homes to bear the risk of having their residents out on the streets again?
Garima Graha scheme as well, Garima Graha have only been done in a few states. They're not there in Telangana. Telangana was not one of those states. They've only been done in a few states, and to my best knowledge, many of those Garima Grahas have now been starving for funds for the last 2 years. Many of them have shut down. The Smile scheme as well leaves a lot to be desired. I don't think it has it has taken off yet. Pradhan Mantri Ayushman Bharat. We yet are struggling to avail of Ayushman Bharat medical insurance to undergo sex reassignment surgeries, or more popularly known as now known as gender affirmation surgeries. It's not available by default.
Also, none of us have forgotten what the BJP government told the Supreme Court in the marriage equality case. Have we?
They really went on to quote and said that this is not really marriage, supposed to be between a man, biological man and woman, and that's like their landmark statement. Plus, they said it's something to do with urban elite and not realizing that queer identities can exist even in the most remotest place of India, and they think it's a foreign concept. So that also shows that the government has very less understanding.
Now, the Congress. In its Nyaya Patra, the Congress makes two promises. One is that it will expand the scope of Articles 15 and 16 of the Indian Constitution to include disability, impairment, and sexual orientation as grounds for discrimination. The Congress also promises to recognize civil unions of LGBTQIA+ couples. But the Congress says that it would be done after a wide consultation. The CPIM and the NCPSP have made up to 7 promises. But all of them, except the CPIM, have strangely forgotten to mention horizontal reservation for trans persons, which has in fact been the long-standing demand of the LGBTQIA+ community.
Direly and urgently, the need of the hour is horizontal and interlocking reservations for transgender persons across spheres of public and aided education, public employment, which includes government jobs and jobs employment in public sector undertakings and in all government schemes, clearly specified and notified on the reservation roster points. In all schemes, we want a certain interlocking percentage to be reserved for transgender persons, be it reservation on grounds of caste and gender as bidimensional, where caste operates vertically and gender operates horizontally, bidimensional, or be it reservation on disability and gender, which is also bidimensional, where disability operates vertically and gender operates horizontally.
We can see a lot of changes in coming 10 years. Before Nalsa judgment, so there is no identification for queer people. After judgment only, we are getting identification, we are getting education facilities, employee facilities, at the same time identification. Queer people are involving with the government schemes.
In my opinion, I don't think the union government has actually done much in the space of the LGBTQI rights movement. People mistake it that there's a lot of movement that has happened, a lot of progress has happened during this tenure. But they mistake it for all the work that's coming from the grassroots organizations, from activists, from the common people itself. So all right from the Nalsa judgment to the Navtesh Johar to the marriage equality case. So all these have started from people's movements. It so happens that it happened during this 10 years. So people kind of mistake it for the union government.
When you look at things in the last 10 years, or rather the report card which comes out, the union government hardly did any work towards affirming rights or protecting the legal rights towards LGBTQIA individuals in this country. And I think it's very sad to recognize the fact that 10 years have passed and nothing from the union government's progressive ideals of protecting LGBTQIA people's rights or protecting them in their legal discourse or even the healthcare perspective has been nil to none. The societal attitude has of course changed in the last 10 years, and that's all due to the advocacy and visibility that has increased in the LGBT community. From prides that we recognized in 2008 in Bangalore, which had little to less than 100 people that attended the march, to today when we march with pride with over at least 7,000 people, this itself is a great impact on the mindset of India's society in so many ways. Visibility is what has helped us move forward. Advocacy is what has helped us move forward, not the government and not any form of support that has been extended by the ruling BJP party.
We now have the Transgender Persons Protection Rights Act 2019, and the Transgender Persons Protection Rights Rules 2020, which form the very first pan-India legislative and statutory framework intended to advance the rights and lives of transgender persons. However, that's only with reference to transgender persons, and it's not as though the legislation was entirely the way we wanted. At some levels it is progressive, at some other levels it is not, particularly with reference to reservations for transgender persons. The statute is silent, it has no provision for reservations. Both the Act and rules have no provision at all on reservations. As transgender persons, we are demanding horizontal reservations, interlocking and horizontal reservations, so that's nowhere mentioned. The rest of the LGB plus communities, there's barely anything that has been done by the Government of India. I don't think the census even records the population of LGB persons. It only records the population of transgender persons. Even within that, the awareness about transgender persons is poor. The awareness on who lesbian, gay, bisexual, queer persons is even less, is weaker.
When we look at the proceedings that took place in the Supreme Court of India earlier this year, the arguments from the union government stand was pretty clear and cautious. For example, that they did not want to take an open stand on supporting LGBTQIA rights as well as protecting LGBTQIA citizens. Recognizing same-sex relationships was never on their priority, and I don't think ever will be. The stance and their opinion about LGBTQIA people and their relationships is very clear in the ruling BJP party and as well as the union government. And when we look at the elections today, it's very important for the queer community to make the right choice towards the right government that wants to choose and protect them. There's a chance for parties to prioritize LGBTQIA people and their rights.
So we hope that whoever comes next are willing to listen more and involve the public more. I think that's what I'm looking for. Great example is the Tamil Nadu government. When they were doing the LGBTQI policy, they decided to have public consultation meetings, which is one of the very, very rare cases that has happened so far. I don't think any other legislation so far has really involved public as much as the Tamil Nadu government did in its public consultation.
We would like the new government, whichever government forms whichever party forms the new government, to adhere to its assurance to the Supreme Court of India in Supriyo Chakrabarti and others versus Union of India, which is the marriage equality case, where a high-powered committee headed by the cabinet secretary was promised to be constituted. I think it's recently been constituted, but the mandate of that committee has been, the terms of reference have been significantly changed. I think this high-powered committee must take up all the issues that were mandated by the Supreme Court in its final judgment and not just be an eyewash, must gather, comb through all states and union territories and all districts throughout India to hear the voices and the teeming millions of voices of queer and transgender persons, the entire LGBTIQ plus communities.
At the same time, one of our trans person, Laila Organti, in Telangana Election Commission, nominated her as a election brand ambassador. This much of change we got. Seriously, it is a good achievement in our queer community. So I hope in coming years, trans person, queer persons can be a part of Lok Sabha. Trans queer persons can be a part of Rajya Sabha.
Let us not be bewildered by the fact that LGBT rights has so much more in its battle to fight for acceptance in India today. One of the most important things for us to recognize is that we must need inclusive policies that protect us LGBTQIA citizens from violence, from discrimination in our workplaces to also inclusive healthcare policies that include not just us but also our same-sex partners. Let us also recognize that the years moving forward, that educational institutions opened their doors to having a lot more trans people join these educational institutions and be given seats to do some of the blue-collar courses that are available and the white-collar courses. Let us also envision and hope for a future where India is not tormented by violence, harassment and discrimination of its LGBTQIA citizens, but is built with its love, kindness and inclusivity. This is what I envision and this is what I hope to manifest as a queer activist.
This election season, your right to choose puts you at the heart of it again.
We'd like to be your eyes and ears.
Choose the journalism and media that serves democracy and you.
Simply head on to newslaundry.com/subscription and pick up the TNMNL joint subscription of your choice today.